Today we will be talking about copyright rules and what you need to know about intellectual property. During this presentation, we will discuss several different things. We will start off by talking about what copyright actually is. Then we'll talk about why copyright is important. Next, we'll move into the rules of copyright, followed by some examples of copyright. And we will end our presentation talking about fair use and the Creative Commons and public domain. So first of all, what is copyright? Copyright is something that is protected by the US Constitution. This is something that our government has put in place to protect people who create things. This is not something that only the United States has, but this is something that is offered around the world. Different countries may have different copyright rules. Copyright gives legal protection to an original piece of work, so something that somebody has created. These laws are there to protect the people who create these things in case somebody uses their material without permission. Creations can be things such as books, music, videos, artwork, basically anything that comes from human imagination. So when you are playing a video game at home, somebody has created that. The person who created it or the company that they work for owns the copyright on that video game, and therefore they have protections that keep you from making copies of that game. Copyright laws give restrictions on when copyrighted materials can be copied, sold, changed, or shared with others. Just because you buy something doesn't mean that you are allowed to make copies of it or share it with other people. It's important to know that not everything can be copyrighted. Things like facts and ideas are not protected, as well as titles, procedures, and documents made by the government. Plagiarism and piracy are ways of violating copyright laws. So you cannot take something that is copyrighted and copy it or share it online. Technology has made it easy to violate copyright laws, but just because it's easy to break these laws doesn't mean that we should. We still have an obligation to the people who create these things to make sure that we're using it in a right way. So why is copyright important? Copyright is important because creators of content should be paid for their work. These people are trying to make a living by creating material. They should be paid for these things that they are making. Creators' work can't be changed. This means that if you have made a print copy of something and it's copyrighted, people cannot then go make a digital copy of it to share it online. By having these protections, it actually encourages people to create content. Again, we want to make sure that people who are making a living from creating material are being paid for these things that they're making. If they weren't getting paid, that would keep them from wanting to make this material. So these protections are allowing for people to create material and be protected in case somebody tries to steal it from them. And really, copyright protects everyone, including you. So now we're going to talk about some different copyright rules. Work is copyrighted as soon as it is created. So when you take a picture of something, that is actually copyrighted. People are not allowed to take the picture that you took and sell it. Copyrights can be registered, though, to give more protection, and that can be registered online. You can use copyrighted material if you have the owner's permission. But when using that material, you need to make sure that you have included the owner's name or any other information that they require when you are using it. Copyrighted materials can only be edited with the owner's permission. So when you contact the copyright owner to see if you can use their material, they will tell you what it is that you need to do to be able to use it. And they'll also tell you what you're allowed to do with that material. Formats of copyrighted materials are protected. So again, if you have a print copy of something, you're not allowed to then go and turn it into a digital copy. It's important to know, though, that materials are not protected forever. There are many different rules that go along with this, but one is that copyright protections typically end 70 years after the owner's death. So when the copyright owner has died, you typically have to wait 70 years to be able to use that material without their permission. After copyright protections run out, people can use the material for free. And then there are consequences for using copyrighted materials without permission. Most of those consequences would be being fined for the work that you are taking. Here are some examples of different copyright situations. Whoa, did you know that you're a copyright owner? Anything that you have created, even that kindergarten artwork that you made, is actually copyrighted. So let's look at some different examples. So let's say that you take a picture with someone else's phone. The phone owner, though, wants to sell copies of the picture. But who owns the copyright? Well, you do. Even though you took the picture with somebody else's phone, because you took the picture, you actually own the copyright. Let's look at another situation. Brady tells his friend Kinsler an idea for a story. They both sit down and write the story together. Who owns the copyright? Well, they both do, because they both contributed to the writing of the story. Let's look at some situations and see if copyright was violated. A friend has a CD that you really like. You ask them to make a copy for you, and they do. Did they violate copyright laws? Yes. They copied a CD without permission, and they gave that copy to somebody for free. That would be violating copyright. And let's look at one more situation. A playwright studied the play Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare and created a more modern version of it that was then turned into a movie. Did the playwright violate copyright laws? Actually, in this situation, they did not, because the play Romeo and Juliet is not protected under copyright anymore because it has been over 70 years since William Shakespeare has died. So let's go into talking about fair use. Fair use is something that allows for copyrighted material to be used without permission, but only in certain situations. One situation would be commentary and criticism. So an example would be if you are giving a review of copyrighted material. The review does not have to be a positive review. It could be something negative, but you are allowed to critique the material and give quotes from it or examples from it. Another example of fair use would be in news reporting. So if somebody was giving a news report, let's say about a speech that was given, they would be allowed to include quotes from that speech. Another example of when fair use could be applied would be during a scholarly report. So if somebody was doing research on a topic, they could use quotes from another piece of research as evidence. And the last time fair use could be used would be in a parody. An example of that would be imitating work in a comedic or funny way. A really good example of this is Weird Al when he creates songs that are based off of other songs. He changes them up in a way to make them more funny. It is important to think about some different things when you are using fair use, because not everything can be used. So some things to think about would be the purpose for the use. Is it for educational use, or is money being made off of it? If it's for educational use, it probably is going to fall under fair use. If money is being made, it may not be applied. You also need to think about the nature of the material. Is the work more imaginative or is it more factual? If it's more imaginative, then that may not fall under fair use because that came from the creator's mind and from their imagination. If it's more factual, it may fall under fair use. You also need to think about the amount of work that is being used. Is it a small amount or is it a large amount? If you are only quoting a sentence or a paragraph or a page, then that will probably fall under fair use. But if you are copying the whole thing, that will probably not be fair use. You also need to think about the effect on the market of the material. So is the creator losing money because you have used it? If the creator is going to lose money, then that is probably not going to be fair use. Last, we're going to talk about Creative Commons and the public domain. The Creative Commons gives a free and easy way to give copyright permission. The material in Creative Commons is copyrighted, but it allows for quick and easy access to the copyright owners so that you can get permission from them to use the materials. Material in the Creative Commons can be used for free. Users of the material must be sure to follow the rules of the Creative Commons license. So based on the license that the owners have, they may require you to give them to use their name when you use their material. They may require you to say other things about the material that you are using, but you have to follow the license that they have. There are some different places where you can find material in Creative Commons. One would be Flickr, the Creative Commons website, Openverse, Pexels, or Canva. Many of the materials that are on websites like Canva have already come to a copyright agreement. So you are able to use those materials, but you need to make sure that you check on that to make sure that you are using it in a way that has been approved. If you are wanting to do a Google image search, you can click on Tools at the top of the screen and then click on Usage Rights. You can select Creative Commons licenses to see images in the Creative Commons. And you can go look at those images and you can find out how those materials are able to be used. And last, we're talking about the public domain. When copyright laws have expired on a material, they go into what's called the public domain. And these materials can be used as wanted. It does not require